A federal judge is expected to rule tomorrow on whether the president must comply with a subpoena for 10 years of his financial records issued by House Oversight Chairman Elijah Cummings. The White House also facing another subpoena deadline on Friday for the president's tax returns from House Ways and Means Chair Richard Neal. Republicans like House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy are going after those investigations.
This is a time that the country wants us to move forward. We want to move forward. We got health care. We got trade. We got a crisis on our border. The Democrats are more interested in subpoenas than solutions.
President Trump tweeted this yesterday. Ever since the Mueller report showed no collusion and no obstruction, the Dems have been working overtime to damage me and the Republican Party by issuing over 80 demands for documents and testimonies, and with no reason. That's all they want to do. Don't care about anything else! Exclamation point. At a rally last week, the president said all the Democrats' investigations will help him in 2020. But House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff disputes that.
That's not going to happen, and I don't think this country could survive another 4 years of a president like this who gets up every day trying to find new and inventive ways to divide us. He doesn't seem to understand that a fundamental aspect of his job is to try to make us a more perfect union, but that's not at all where he's coming from, and he's going to be defeated. He has to be defeated because I don't know how much more our democratic institutions can take of this kind of attack on the rule of law.
Meanwhile, House Judiciary Committee Chair Jerry Nadler says there are no immediate plans for Robert Mueller to testify this week. He's also offered to re-enter negotiations with Attorney General Bill Barr before House Democrats proceed to a House floor vote on contempt. Brian, this is a lot.
Right. Okay, I'll take that. Is that my question?
Yes.
Right, this is what I would say. Adam Schiff, it's very rich for he says the president's goal is to divide us. If the president's culpable of dividing us, he's just as culpable because all he does is division. It's not just his job description because he is an oversight. I understand he wants to investigate, but he has been gone out of his way to be an adversary to the president. The other thing to keep in mind, too, is the president of the United States is saying, you're trying to investigate things that happened before I was even a politician. You're wondering why I'm defensive? You want to go into my bank records. You want to find out about the things I did to get to apply to own the Buffalo Bills. You want to know what you want Donald Trump Jr. to come back again. You want Don McGahn, we gave you 30 hours. Every lawyer would have said I never would have allowed my counsel to do that. You want to this is what you want to do. You want to take the book, which is a bestseller, make the audio book, which is a bestseller. Now you want to make the video book a bestseller. You want to put the Mueller probe onto video, and the president has the audacity to say, I'd rather you not.
All right, so since you brought up Donald Trump Jr., we want to bring in Senator Lindsey Graham on advice that he would give him on a subpoena. Watch this.
If I were Donald Trump Jr.'s lawyer, I would tell him, you don't need to go back into this environment anymore. You've been there for hours and hours and hours, and nothing being alleged here changes the outcome of the Mueller investigation. I would call it a day.
So is that tricky? Is that the tricky part, Jessica? I mean, if none of this changes the outcome of any of this, how does this bode for Democrats?
Well, that's Lindsey Graham's interpretation of it. There are a number of people, including Democrats, who are heading up all these committees who feel very differently about this. The president tweeted yesterday, there were 70, 80 tweets or something, very low on Mother's Day tweets, though, where he said that everyone went in front of him and talked to Bob Mueller. Don Jr. didn't talk to Bob Mueller, and the president himself didn't talk to Bob Mueller. That's one of the key reasons that people do want to see Bob Mueller show up on the Hill. And the AP is reporting this morning that there's concern from the White House of what it will look like if the Mueller probe is on video, and you have someone like Bob Mueller standing up there and explaining why he made the decisions that he did and where the evidence took him. Now, when you think about the fact that there are 20 probes right now that are ongoing where subpoenas are being stymied at the direction of the White House, you know, from getting Don Jr., Don McGahn, looking at tax returns, ownership. I understand that it's a lot, but when you consider how these oversight committees work, how they did, certainly when President Obama was in office, Republicans were in charge and they were going after various Democrats for all of these things, it doesn't actually seem that out of line. And the question about what was going on when you were trying to buy the Buffalo Bills, we know that the president's finances are incredibly tricky. We want to know who he owes money to, what kind of debt is owed. Why? Because
he was already streamlined by 14 Republicans. He's got the job.
It's not about getting the job. It's how you're using the job. You have royal delegations that are staying at Trump properties. You have him moving money around from his campaign to his personal businesses. $1.5 million.
I hope you're asking these same questions about Joe Biden and his family and where they're invested in their private equity fund. I hope you felt the same way about the Clintons and where they were.
Do you want to talk about Rudy Giuliani and Ukraine? Then I'm happy to talk about that.
Terrific.
Someone's got to find out what happened in the Ukraine. The Ukraine told us what happened there. You think that Joe Biden risked his vice presidency and all of this
I'm talking about
because his son was on
equity fund and the investments everywhere with different governments. But I'm just saying, if we're so concerned about this with this president, I hope we're equally concerned with everyone else. When I hear this litany, you know, my mind drifts to immigration. My mind drifts to health care. I start thinking that once we found out the president wasn't a Russian spy, after that, you're like, can we get on with business? I mean, can you actually do the job of the people?
Yeah, I mean, and when you say what you think you know about Joe Biden, that's why you ask the questions, because I don't think anybody knows yet. That's why we ask the questions.
That's fine.
He's
if you want to go
after,
after,
we're allowed to ask the questions.
Of course, you're allowed to ask the president, but then be honest
Democrats
about
say
the
they're
questions.
allowed to ask questions. In
the
fact,
natural
they want to
questions
go so far,
about this
Kennedy,
president
as something called inherent contempt. And I looked a little bit up because I thought, okay, I know about the first kinds of contempt. Is that like a third lesser known? Yes, it's very rare in modern times to use a constitutional type of contempt that Democrats are talking about. Why do you think all of this is necessary if the evidence is there that Adam Schiff said was there of collusion and obstruction, and he said he had the evidence?
No, he's got it. Adam Schiff absolutely has it.
Where is it?
And who knows? You know, it's like that's the problem, is we're using these institutions. Oversight is critical. I couldn't agree with you more on that. And if the president, regardless of the party, has done something so horrific and so abusive, figure out what that is and then go after it. Don't just try and raid the pantry hoping that you find an expired can of pork and beans.
So should they comply with all the subpoenas? Because that's how you find things out, right? When you talk to the critical players.
Okay, and here's the thing. This will happen when Democrats are in power, when Democrats assume the presidency, and if there is a split chamber and Republicans have the House. The same thing's going to happen. And for people sitting on the sidelines, it's absolutely exhausting. And I agree with you completely. And to go a point further on that, Democrats are hyper-politicizing all of this, and there is no longer a distinction between politics and policy. Policy has gone by the wayside. That is a corpse. It's all politics, but it's a way for them to not have to work on immigration. And I think there's a great sense of relief, well, immigration in particular, because Democrats could actually do that. They could come up with a solution, a list of demands, as you have said many times. Let's make a casserole, everyone bring an ingredient, and let's put something in the oven. But they don't have to do that as long as they're doing this. Yes, there should be compliance, there should be oversight, but you really got to pick and choose your battles.
I want to get this in from Representative Raskin, a Democrat whom I was kind of paraphrasing before, because I think it's important that we actually talk about his words. We know how to arrest people around here. And if we need to arrest someone, the House Sergeant at Arms will know how to do it. I'm not afraid of that. If they can arrest my constituents, we can arrest someone else who's disobeying the law, end quote. This almost seems like a blanket. You could apply it to any particular investigation that they're carrying out.
First time in 80 years they'd be using that ability to arrest people.
That inherent contempt.
In a cell that needs to be dusted, I imagine, and updated. And now that we have cable and maybe satellite television for that would-be criminal. The other thing is they're going to threaten to fine people $25,000 if they don't show up. The other thing to keep in mind, too, Rahm Emanuel said something interesting over the weekend. Hey, guys, prioritize. You want all these documents, you got 34 investigations, you got all these requests. He goes, you got to work out a priority. You're all in competition with each other and no one's paying attention to you. And he's saying, Democrats, just pick out one or two things that you want done, and then maybe that would put pressure on the president to do it. But there's so many, it's just out of control. It's not his fault he's rich and owns a lot of stuff.